Hello again, everyone. I'm Tripp Rogers. He's the Hall of Famer Mike. Wrong way. I'm pointing the wrong way. It's
Oh,
this.
yeah.
You're over there. No, you're over here. I got it right. You're
Hi
over
there.
there. Hall of Famer Mike Sheck. And of course, if you're listening to this, you're going, "What the hell's going on?" Oh, we have too much fun. We are the Fantasy Sultans, and we're getting ready for Week 6 in the NFL. Um, I can say this with certainty: our NFL teams both stink. They stink really badly, really, really badly. I can say this. Fantasy wise, though, a lot better. Doing a lot better. How we doing in the Rat League this week?
No, we didn't win. No, no, been so far a rough start for us.
I have a funny feeling that's going to make our fantasy list of
Airing
grievances
of
this year.
grievances.
Airing of
Yes.
grievances for Fantasy Festivus. All right, Mike, we head into Week 6 in the NFL. Fantasy-wise, again, more injuries. One of the big injuries, which I think is kind of flown under the radar a little bit, but Spencer Schrader out for
Yeah.
the season, IR knee injury for the Indianapolis Colts. Knock on wood, they've only lost one game this year. The Indianapolis Colts with Daniel Jones doing really well. But that's one of the injuries that has kind of flown under the radar. And now you've got if you drafted Brock Bowers,
Hmm.
and I did that in a bunch of leagues. You're kind of wondering what's going to go on. They're saying the knee has got to rest, and there's questions whether or not he's going to play. He's trying to play through it, and playing on it is not helping. But of course, that situation is not helped by the fact Geno Smith is erratic as all hell. And also, Pete Carroll, could this be a case of perhaps maybe Pete should have stayed retired? Just saying. Kind of like Bill
Bill
Belichick
Belichick. Yeah.
at UNC. There you go. There you go. Bill Belichick, maybe should have stayed on the sidelines. Just saying. Okay. But of course, we start off in fantasy. One of the big stories has been the fact that Joe Burrow went down with a toe injury, and the Cincinnati offense you thought was going to be okay with Jake Browning. Well, he kind of looks like Browning Nagel, not Jake Browning, and he has been awful. So the Bengals made a move this week and picked up Joe Flacco from the Cleveland Browns. The thing about this move is at a time when a lot of people were talking about fantasy, and you have the number one overall fantasy pick, Jamar Chase. Chase Brown was a top 1 or 2 round pick. T. Higgins, certainly within the top 4 rounds. These guys, there were rumors they probably you want to downgrade them because they were not producing fantasy wise with Browning at quarterback. Joe Flacco, you got a guy who can quarterback. He's going to start against Green Bay, a team he beat in Week 3 with the Cleveland Browns, may I remind you. But there's a difference. Cleveland Browns have a defense. Cincinnati does not. But again, let's talk about the fantasy implications. And I think this is good news if you have Jamar Chase and Chase Brown and T. Higgins.
Hmm.
Maybe even throw Evan Ingram in there too. No. The tight end is Mike Gesicki. No, it's
Mike
Evan Ingram.
Mike Gesicki. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
Gesicki. That's right. I get those two confused. But you might want to. That's good news for them because Joe Flacco's a guy who can throw the ball. The question is going to be, is it going to be Scoro, and is he going to be able to Scoro? And how much gas does a 40-year-old Joe Flacco have left in the tank?
That's the big question. I mean, because, he's the case of like Aaron Rodgers. Look how well he's doing in Pittsburgh. And you just never know the situation. You talk about Tom Brady when he was in his 40s and how, we always thought that the wine was vintage as he aged, it got better. But then there were cases where, of course, his season at the end, when the way it ended, didn't end so well. So, things are going to happen when you go over the 40 mark. And, I just think it's interesting to see what's going to happen in Cincinnati. But I think you have to have a little bit more optimism, like you said, if you are a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown owner. Week
Most
five,
definitely.
make week five. How about some breakouts, brutal busts, and everything in between? We saw two injuries to hopeful running backs. Omari and Hampton in Los Angeles, as promising as it was for the Charger. Well, he got clipped by a defender while running a route and goes down hard. And then he was seen in a walking boot after the game. Now, we know he's going to be on IR. He's going to miss 4 games with an ankle injury. Bucky Irving for Tampa Bay, he was dealing with a sprained foot. Now he's nursing a shoulder injury. It's a subluxation, and I think that's a little bit more of a serious injury. So, that's something to monitor. And then we had some of the breakouts, of course, Kendrick Bourne in San Francisco. Rico Dowdle in Carolina, career high 206 yards and a rushing touchdown. Devonta
Uncle
Smith in Philly.
Rico.
Rico
Uncle
Suave. Uncle
Rico.
Rico. Devonta Smith in Philly also had a big game. Jalen Hurts threw the ball 38 times. Smith catching less than a third of his passes for 114. And then we can't forget about Stephon Diggs. How about the game he had for New England, bouncing back from his former team in Buffalo? 12 catches, 146.
Yeah. I go back to that Eagle game.
Yeah.
They finally started throwing the ball, and guess what? They stopped running it. And that was one of the issues. And you had an Eagle team that was up in that game and ended up losing. So that was the other part of this. I don't know. Well, listen, I had hoped the Eagles would win that game. False sense of security into the Thursday night matchup against the New York Football Giants. No, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And again, let's talk about the Giants. You got to pump the brakes a little bit about Jackson Dart, but I think as we talked about it last week, and I know we had Theo Johnson on our list of imports, and Theo Johnson played really well, and he is somebody. If you did not get him now, because going forward, he's going to be a part of this offense. Now, one of the things you're not going to know is how this offense is going to be. Tyrone Tracy's not played. And he was injured last week. He didn't play, or injured 2 weeks ago. He didn't play last week. You don't know how he's going to be involved in the offense going forward. But again, the Giants have a brutal schedule. Eagles twice in the next 3 weeks. Denver in between. 49ers after. Oh, boy. It just makes me nauseous thinking about it. But, there's not much I can do about that. We got to move on. Import-exports. Hall of Famer. You're going to start it off.
Yeah, you mentioned San Francisco. I'm going to start it off with Mac Jones in San Francisco. Brock Purdy missing his 3rd game in 4 weeks. It's really been return of the Mac. And we're not talking about our buddy Mac either. We're talking about Mac Jones. 342 yards, 2 touchdowns against Los Angeles last week. We'll have to wait and see what Purdy is ahead of the road matchup against Tampa Bay. But there is some belief that Kyle Shanahan should ride the hot hand and start Jones for the foreseeable future. Even if he doesn't get the nod in Tampa, I don't think it's a bad idea to snag him and have him on your roster.
Hey,
next week,
Mac mentioned within 10 minutes of the start of the show. There you go.
Who had the over-under on that one? Who had the over-under on that one?
There you go. It's 2 weeks in a row for a Mac mention early. But we'll get to the serious issues at hand with Mac. It's a double Mac attack this week.
It's a double Mac. Wide receiver Josh Downs of Indianapolis. He's another import for me. Really not much eye-catching stats here, but he's seeing a slightly respectable 18% target share and a team high 8 times against Las Vegas. The air yards are not there for him, but his 10 catches in the last 2 games have the attention of managers in PPR leagues. He's also posted 11-plus fantasy points in 2 of the last 4, so I think you should pick him up. All right, here's somebody who's a baller. Miami's tight end, Darren Waller. If there's a bright spot in the Dolphins offense, which has been a complete mess outside of Darren Waller, he had 5 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown against Carolina last week. He already has 3 touchdowns in just 2 games played this season. So you have to figure that I think Tua is going to be relying on him a bit more. No Tyreek Hill in the lineup, so I think that bodes well for Waller. Finally, let's talk about a streaming kicker. And with the Green Bay Packers coming off a bye, kicker Brandon McManus is a very good option for you.
Yes.
Over 7% rostered. And this is the right time to pick him up off of waivers. And you know what I say, Tripp? Kickers are like lawyers. They're never appreciated until you need a good one. And I'm telling you,
Well,
I'm telling you, the law office of Brandon McManus, he's a kicker who's on your side. He will fight for you with the special teams representation you deserve. And all you got to do is call 888 Lambo. There you go. 888 Lambo for Brandon McManus, the law office.
but one of the things I do want to say is they were coming off the bye last week. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why he is so a lot of people cut him or swapped him out on waivers last week. Or again, if you were smart, like me, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and you've got to take a second kicker. But you get through the bye, pick him up, and the other advantage is he's had his bye in week 5. So you should be good the rest of the season with the Green Bay kicker. And Green Bay, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be. Import exports for me, I'm going to go with importing Rashawn Spears. Did I get that right? No, I said it wrong. And I have my notes all scrambled here. Brashard Smith from, I scratched this stuff out. I can't read this, Yeah. See, I can't. Can you read that? Can you read that? You can't read that. So there you go. Brashard Smith of Kansas City. Andy Reid getting Smith involved in the Kansas City offense. Now, he played a season-high 19 snaps in Week 4, has now caught 3 passes in back-to-back games. Against Jacksonville, he was limited to 6 snaps, but managed to make an impact. 4 touches, all 3 of his targets for 32 yards. Brashard Smith, by the way, is wide receiver. I apologize for that. He's also kick returner, gets some good yards in that, but again, in most leagues, you won't get credit for that. 9.8 yards per reception. Kareem Hunt gets 7.3. Isaiah Pacheco 5.1. Reid has praised Smith's work ethic, and he plans to get the rookie more involved, keep defenses guessing. He's a stash you may want to grab, and again, he's available on waivers. Here's a guy who I'm kind of surprised. Joy Taylor is his aunt. Hey, you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know who Joy Taylor is. Okay. How about Jason Taylor, who was an all-pro for the Miami Dolphins? I'm talking about his son, Mason. The Jets drafted him this year. He started his rookie season slowly, just 3 targets over the first 2 games. But his involvement taken a huge upturn in the last 2 games. Since week 3, he's had just over 8 targets per game. Last 2 outings, 7 receptions, 66 yards. That's second only to Garrett Wilson, who's a wide receiver. Quarterback Justin Fields has started both these games that he's done well in. It increases his value. A lot of that production can also be attributed to garbage time, since the Jets padded their stats against Miami and Dallas in weeks 4 and 5. Taylor is still 77% of snaps for the Jets, and he ranks second on the team with a target share of 18%. He's second on the Jets with 22% since week 3. If you're concerned about Theo Johnson with the Giants, and if he's not available, and you want somebody with some value, and you could probably get him, Taylor, good consolation prize in this. All right, I'm going to give you an export, and I really think there's no surprise here. Amari DiMercato. Well, last week, Mikey was touting him because of the injuries in the Cardinals' backfield. What did he do? He dropped the ball on the way in for a touchdown. Dropped the ball. Yep. So, unfortunately, the Sultans show no mercy, as Mac is going to find out this week. Not once, but twice. DiMercato, he had a chance to really stamp himself on this Cardinal team. That faux pas, that's the second consecutive week somebody dropped the ball going into the end zone. Second consecutive week. And it's just, that's inexcusable. Yep. Inexcusable.
Sloppy.
But it's also kind of ironic that the show Chad Powers just debuted on Hulu, and it deals with a quarterback who did the same thing. The same thing. So, but DeMercado, I think I really can't see him getting much play going forward, and I'm going to pump the brakes on him and say export DeMercado at this point.
Well, I'll forgive you, but you left out my exports. That's all right, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just sorry. real quick. I'm just going to say, Jerry.
Yeah, I thought you. I wondered where your export went to.
Yeah.
You had to call 1-800-Lambo.
I did. That's what I did. I was phoning the law office of Brandon McManus. But I'm going to tell you about Jeremy McNichols, Jacory, a.k.a. Bill Krosky Merritt. He pretty much seized most of the control of the Commanders' backfield with 150 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns with a win over the Chargers. That's going to leave McNichols unworthy of a roster spot. I think even the case of Chris Rodriguez, too. My other export, real quick, Juwan Johnson in New Orleans. Now, he was a thing early on in the season.
Yes.
But the past 2 games, 5 receptions, 45 yards. Last week, a little over 3.5 fantasy points. I think he's droppable with a chance of regret. But, if you really want to keep him for another week or 2 and you have the roster space, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I just don't think he's performing that well in that New Orleans offense right now.
But Mike, the other part of it is in terms of tight ends, and there's really not a whole lot out there because, we jumped on the Harold Fannin bandwagon early this year. Theo Johnson last week, we said he was probably going to get, he was somebody you want to pick up. And the tight ends are very tough to get breakout. And again, with the injury, the Brock Bowers injury is such a, I want to couch this because, normally you say you want to have a good handcuff. Brock Bowers' handcuff was Michael Myers. Guess what? Both are out. So, that kind of messes you up there if you're going that way.
Yeah.
And you got to throw the other thing in there that Geno Smith has just been, not been good.
No.
He's been very Geno Smith-like. We saw it with the Jets, saw it with the Giants, saw it with Seattle, saw it with whomever else he was with. We saw it. We've seen it before. But I think you got to hope that Brock Bowers can come back and maybe add a little bit of stability to that offense because, boy, I'll tell you. And disappointments, we talked about it last week. We mentioned it on a radio show, which, by the way, is on Sundays at 11 o'clock on FoxSportsNewJersey.com and Fox Sports radio stations in New Jersey. But real quick, that's something that I don't know. I think Las Vegas to me, because we thought Geno was going to be okay. We said, hey, Geno could be that quarterback you grab.
Yeah.
After all the big ones are gone, Geno could give you a good job. I think he's in a good place in Las Vegas and yada yada. Just no, that didn't work out. Kind of like our Rat League draft. It just didn't work out. It just didn't
has not. No.
And, we haven't gotten this long in the show without mentioning the fact that last week we had a Sultan sandwich. We had a Sultan sandwich in the Sultans League. I was number 1. Mike was number 12.
Mm-hmm. But I got the win. I got a bounce back win. So I don't think I'm 12 anymore.
I'm not number 1 because I lost to Ben. And Ben is number 1. Ben had a huge week last week. Huge week. But as I mentioned, and we hinted on it, I have Mac in both the Best Buy League and in the Sultans League. And you know what that means. You may beat one of the fantasy Sultans. You're not beating us both. And I have never lost to Mac. And I plan to continue this. If it does not happen, I will be having a wholesale roster churn next week with those losers, because I will not stand for it. But the one thing, and the other thing, I don't know if you've noticed it, but on ESPN leagues, you do have the undroppable players. You can't drop certain players, no matter how hard you try. You
Yeah.
can put them on IR, or if they go on IR, I think if they're out for the season, see how you can get rid of them at that point. But otherwise, you can't drop players. There's certain players you can't drop. So, and one of those players I have was Jaden Daniels. It says you cannot drop them. No. But
Hey,
again,
Tripp.
that's it.
Yep. I was going to go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were going to say.
I just want to add before I know we're going to be wrapping it up. I just want to add something here. I think a lot of people, get comfortable when they're at the top spot or even in the top 3 of your league. Your roster's performing, you're doing well, but there's going to be weeks where that lineup is just not going to perform. And I think that's where the waiver wire comes into handy. If you peruse the waiver wire, you could find gems on the waiver wire who can get you points. And I just think that people overlook their lineup at times and say, hey, I'm doing fine. I'm comfortable. It's a trap game, just like we see it in the NFL.
Yes.
And sometimes you get caught with your pants down. So, definitely want to look at that waiver wire each and every week. We give you the import exports every week to help you out. But you could be ahead of us because, we drop the podcast on a Thursday. So the waiver wires in most leagues drop on a Wednesday. So, you got to be a little bit ahead of us. We try to help you work ahead as well. But, I think, again, like I'm saying, your performers, they're not always going to perform each and every week. You can't get too comfortable.
And again, I think one of the things, and this is maybe one of the biggest changes I've done, because I never paid attention to the waiver wire report and stuff, but I've been paying attention because this is the second week in a row somebody has dropped a big player, and I've been able to grab them. Last week it was Austin Eckler. This week, Brock Purdy. Somebody put Brock Purdy on waivers. Really? You were that dumb. I mean, you do not think somebody's going to, like I said, I'm hoping I'm the guy who grabs Brock Purdy, because obviously if I get him, he's questionable, but I'll put him on the IR list. I'll stash him. I mean, Brock Purdy that's a pretty good backup quarterback. I mean, and I think that's one of the teams I have Justin Fields on. I'll still take Brock Purdy. Why not? I'm keep waiting for Justin Fields to do Justin Fields things. And he's playing for the NYJ. So, need I say more, right? It's the New York Jets. We're here to help you. The Fantasy Sultans, our podcast, as Mike said, we drop it on Thursdays. We try and give you the information. Our Sunday with the Sultans is on at 11 o'clock on Sundays, but we're givers, except for Mac. We're givers for Mac. We give beatdowns. We give beatings, which is what we're going to do this week. Mac, I'm coming for you, baby. You better believe it. Respect the commish. Respect him, because he's coming for you. But we're here to help you. We got to get Mac on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we got to get him on.
People have got to, he's got to take his abuse in person. He's got to take his abuse in person. He really does. I mean, it's no fun when he's yelling at the radio and we're sitting here talking. It's a one-way conversation. but anyhow, but we're here every week. The podcast drops Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock. We're giving you the information you need to win. We're trying to help you. We've won. We've got awards. We've got rings. We've got banners. And we have your information for you. We're every week giving you the fantasy information you need on YouTube, on a podcast. We are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.